Sayaka Murata is back with Vanishing World, and this one is translated by Ginny Tapley Takamori. And this one is a little bit more for adults, I would say. So some of the themes and things here are a little bit more adult. So I'm just going to give you that little warning up front. This one may not be for you. Following the massive loss of life from World War II, women helped the war effort by being artificially inseminated. With the biological need for sex eliminated, it started to be considered unclean and incestuous, though people still marry to raise children, and people vent their romantic feelings on commercialized cartoon characters. As science evolves, the question arises whether the family system is needed at all, and soon men will be able to give birth too. In this world, Amane, I think that's how you pronounce it, Amane, Amane, is born via old-fashioned human-to-human contact, with her mother raising her to believe in romance, love, and physical connection, but she wants to fit into the world around her and be normal, even while she's out of step with her peers. She sees herself as a reverse Adam and Eve. Rather than the first to sin through sex, she's one of the last. It's a little hard to describe the plot of this book. It's not very long, and it's a portrait of Amane and her world, rather than having a lot of plot points. So I think if I kind of mention anything, it may end up being something that happens towards the end of the book. And I think that would kind of spoil things a little bit. But it's a slow build over the course of the book. We see her grappling with being repulsed by her mother's view of the world, her mother's old-fashioned idea of physical connection, romance, and yet she ends up embodying some of these old ways of being, and we see her struggling to relax into the world as it is now. Sometimes other people strike her as very strange and gross, as cult-like. Excuse me. Sometimes other people strike her as very strange and gross, as sort of cult-like or more adapted to the new world. Other times she wants to almost merge with them and sort of lose her sense of self a little to some extent. It's all building to a dark crescendo, which is one of the things that this author does very well. Sayaka Murata is an award-winning Japanese author who has written several popular books in her native country before bursting onto the English language scene when her 10th book, Convenience Store Woman, was translated into English. This was followed by Earthlings, which I have reviewed here as well. Her books are something quite different. Earthlings and this book are about women alienated from society, struggling to understand it, and they're both confronting, unsettling, and strange stories, but in the best way, not gratuitously or just for the sake of it. Her books tend to explore themes of taboo subjects, social conformity, asexuality, and the struggles of the modern world, things like climate change or concerns around birth rates or a breakdown of family, like different things like that. This can lead to uncomfortable reading. I'd say this book is fairly graphic, though perhaps what's most unsettling about this is the oddly clinical nature of the way things are described. It's a thought-provoking but unsettling read that I was left thinking about long after I turned that last page. I think this author may be a little bit of an acquired taste. So personally, I'm always fascinated by the ride Murata takes us on. It's always weird, but the way she writes is very page-turning, and I think it's quite clever. I think this idea of disrupting the traditional conception of babies is kind of a long-held debate. I remember the term test tube babies that used to be thrown around when I was a kid even, and the idea that men might feel obsolete if women could conceive without them. In this book, the idea is taken further and further. What does love and romance mean if we don't need it for procreating? What does family mean if we don't need it for procreating? Does gender matter so much in that space, or sexuality? Do we need any of these concepts? What would life be like if it was organized around these sort of controlled principles? Because of this concept of having children sort of divorced from sex, we have this clinical sense of need and closeness, feelings and bodily needs just need an outlet and to be ignored, sort of put away. They're kind of gross, embarrassing. It's creepy and sterile, but on the flip side, by making some of the language sort of cold and distant, the author is able to show us how Amane feels separate from people, even a little disgusted by some people when they get too close to her, and then wanting to be inside the bodies of other people or have them inside hers kind of thing. It's very strange, and yet I could see some parallels to modern life, but just sort of taken to an extreme, taken into the zones that we don't talk about. It's not so much about the anxiety of social breakdown in a changing world, but rather about the way that top-down societal norms can be put upon us, and their inhumanity can be maddening and insupportable. On the other hand, her story shows us our own world turned upside down, inside out, which does highlight how weird it is sometimes to be human. In a dark way, I found some of this book quite funny. The way husbands and wives are so okay with their partners having lovers was kind of funny. It's sort of almost more like a sibling relationship. So they kind of want to know or encourage, each other's sort of outside relationships. So that was kind of funny. The way that new ways of being are seen as more evolved, and then someone else seeing their way of living as then being even more evolved, and the previous trend is then seen as primitive. So as these kind of layers fall away, it's like, oh, I'm more evolved than you because I don't need this and I don't need that. Competitive social evolution. I'm more evolved than you. I feel like that feels kind of relevant. And the way that anime characters are designed to capitalize on people needing an outlet for their romantic feelings, which then leaves people feeling exploited. I think that was very cynical, but it feels sort of hilariously like something that would happen in this world, this story world. The book at one point says, "Normality is the creepiest madness there is. This was all insane, yet it was so right." I think that's kind of almost like the thesis of this book. I think that's what the book is really exploring, and I found that really interesting. This whole sort of concept in this book reminded me of stories I've heard of children raised collectively, usually in the more modern era, as a means of the state breaking up the nuclear family as a social construct, sometimes as part of something like a sort of Marxist, communist, Soviet ideal of the state being more important than the individual. So these were stories I've been told anecdotally by friends whose parents or relatives had experienced it, and just how damaging that was. So it was kind of a system where, you would have a baby and then the state would raise it for you, with the whole community sort of being involved. So you didn't, your children were not yours, basically. So yeah, I tried to look it up. I don't know if I just couldn't find the right search terms for it. But yeah, I could only find one instance of it in a Guardian article. So, yeah, it's something that has been tried before, and it's something that seems to also be common in sort of religious cults as well, this kind of communal child raising, so that the individual is always more loyal to something outside the family. They're not distracted by sort of worrying about their children or their relationships and stuff. And I kind of wondered if this was a little bit of what inspired this story by Murata. Just a thought. Either way, this is a book that may not be for all of you. Murata can be an acquired taste because of that confronting or transgressive and unsettling storytelling. Especially sometimes the endings can be really intense. But if you're okay with that and you like a more kind of art house read, it's startling and fascinating reading. And the ending in this book, it gets pretty dark. After finishing this one, though, I went onto my local library's catalog to reserve Convenience Store Woman because I haven't read that one of hers yet. And I just kind of wanted to after reading this book. And when I did go to request it, I found I'm number 17 on the list to read it. So, yeah, I feel like this author kind of reaches a lot of people. And so if you haven't heard of her, she may be for you. But just be aware that it's the kind of content that is not for everybody. So I feel like you'll kind of know if this is for you or not. If you're a fan of this author, you're going to love this one. I feel like it's in fine form for her, body of work or whatever. You'll like this if you're a fan of hers. If you like a read that's challenging, thought-provoking, and can handle a little more sort of body horror type visuals and concepts, you're going to like this one. There's really nothing quite like Sayaka Murata, in my opinion. Thank you to PGC Books for the copy of this one so I could read it and share it with you. And if you've read Convenience Store Woman, I think there's one other book of hers as well. It's short stories, I think, that's been translated into English. If you've read any of her work, come tell me what you think in the comments, because I feel like you're either going to love her or hate her. Not her personally, her work. Also, if you've read any of the ones that haven't been translated into English and you'd like to tell me about those, find me in the comments. And yeah, thank you for joining me and for watching. It's always nice to hang out with you guys. Bye for now.